at the Finance Story, I have the pleasure of inviting a man who has studied the science and art of medicine and also has turned it into a successful commercial activity. Uh, we have Dr. Ari Gargir. Welcome to the Finance Story, and let me start by congratulating you on being awarded $500,000 for RedC. At RedC, you are developing industrial process to produce universal red blood cells. But first, I would like to know, how did you get into the field of science and finance? And what was your journey like growing up?
Thanks a lot for inviting me here. My journey into science started as a child, and I was interested since I was a small kid, even before I went to school. And even my friends would make fun of me when I would gather fossils on trips, on walking trips, and it was kind of understood from my side and from my environment that I'm going to be a scientist. I studied biology. I did my master's degree in biotechnology. I've learned that in my first degree that biology is not only chasing after butterflies with nets, but it also is about industry, about production, about providing medicine and food and working for the environment. And in the middle, I also had a fantasy about space travel, and I kind of mixed that in with my studies. I attended a summer session in the International Space University. And after my Ph.D. In microbiology, I moved to the biotech industry, in which I'm active since the year 2000 until now. And I've been in various companies, startup companies and global companies, and did a lot of product development. And in that, it also brought me into the I would say less of the world of finance, but more of the commercial world, and how products have to go to the market. And in the end, a lot of other things brought me to establish RedC Biotech.
What led you to, jump into entrepreneurship in the health tech with RedC Biotech?
The environment in Israel is very prone to the entrepreneurship world. For many years, I've been looking for something that would be, in my vision, worthy to do. And it took quite a few years, and it was in the background. So specifically, the idea for RedC Biotech came from an interest back when I was a student in my bachelor's. I did paragliding for sport, and I crashed. And I was wounded. I received a blood transfusion, which saved my life. I lost a lot of blood. And at that time, I didn't fully understand about blood safety and how you get a blood transfusion. And I started learning that. I learned that the blood supply is a very challenging industry, very difficult, a lot of challenges, a lot of shortages, a lot of cost, a lot of risk. And for years, I've been thinking how I could contribute to that. And only when I thought about RedC Biotech, and after learning about a technology that I've been exposed to that came from the Technion. The Technion is like Israel's MIT, a technology that allows to produce product cells from stem cells at an industrial level. And at one point, I put two things together. I could use this technology and solve the problems of the blood transfusion industry. And that's how RedC Biotech was born.
Why did you think that that could be a business that you could, enter into?
One of the things that I've learned in the companies that I work with and my supervisors and the business groups is that you don't develop a product before you know that you have a strong market that will accept it. And also, when learning about the difficulties of the blood transfusion um, world, I understood that there is a big market, and I could, every year, red blood cell transfusions are extremely important in medical treatment. Um, every hospital has a blood bank. Every hospital needs blood for treating people in trauma, that people that suffer from blood loss and injuries. Many women around the world die during childbirth because of blood loss. Operations, surgery, people, there's an awful lot of blood that goes into those procedures. And another population are people that chronically use blood in order to survive. Donors are altruistic people. They're people that out of their goodwill come and give blood, but it's not enough. It's not enough because sometimes you have bad weather. Sometimes you have holidays. Sometimes you have a pandemic and people can't leave their houses. So the model of donation is not sustainable. And we're offering a solution. We're going to produce the blood at the highest standards in bioreactors using a patented technology. And if we could look at all of the disadvantages or the problems that the blood agencies have, we could solve them one by one. But of course, right now we're focusing on the red blood cells.
I'm more interested in knowing how you're solving that problem, because we have created red blood cells. How are we, going to provide access to the potential market that we are talking about?
There are 120 million blood units that are donated every year, but the shortage is almost double that size. It's first of all, I have to emphasize we're not producing synthetic blood. We're producing red blood cells, which are identical to the red blood cells that are produced naturally in our body. The process is artificial and industrial, and that's the idea here. So the blood cells will be produced from stem cells. The source of the stem cells is from people, one person actually, that will donate a blood type that will fit most of humans without being tested, meaning he's an O negative type, but even a more special type, it will fit almost every human on Earth without having to have his blood tested. And because we're producing the blood in bioreactors without any animal materials or human materials, so we'll be clean of pathogens. Because the process does not involve blood or organs, so it will be devoid of any human residual blood components. And of course, every blood unit will be similar to the next. It will have a very precise shelf life. And the most important thing, it will be produced industrially. And the production will be made according to the forecast and demand. Another point is cost. Right now, blood, people have been producing red blood cells from stem cells for almost 2 decades already, but it has never left the lab because of cost. And we have to break a circle here of what's called the economy of scale. And this can be done by growing in scale the technology for the production of the red blood cells that we're utilizing allows to grow in volumes indefinitely. And even, by doing that, the amount of testing that you do, the cost of raw materials and the processes decrease. And we're going to reach a target cost per blood unit, which is about $50 today. In higher income regions, the cost of a blood unit is nearly $200. And our target is to be able to compete in cost, and of course, safety and quality are needless to say that we have to be provided, but the cost will be competitive with donated blood, and it won't happen at once. It will happen gradually as we grow and scale, and also our go-to-market plan will be accordingly, so that we could gradually grow and offer, first of all, the people with the blood disorders, the blood that they need, and later on to the full market. Another point here is that the production will be around the world. It will be in production sites in every region. This is very important for several reasons. Because every country or every region has regulatory requirements that you have to produce under them. And the other point is logistics and the cost and the sustainability. You want to be in a distance from the hospitals that you supply, and not have to fly blood from all over the world.
What factors did you take into consideration before going all out with RedC?
No, I always wanted to explore things on my own. I always had the urge to be involved in product development, in leading product development, but I was always also waiting for myself to come up with an idea that I felt that is complete, and that I really understand the pathway and everything that is required in order to bring from the idea to the market. And with RedC, I understood, first of all, that I have a very good case of the need on one side, and on the other side, I had a very good understanding of the technology that we're using and how to develop it. And of course, not everything was fully focused and sharp when I started. And every day I learn more on how to implement the things. But I do have a very strong understanding that it's doable. And actually, this is the right time for our company and this technology to emerge and to solve this, because there are other very similar industries that are growing in parallel to what we're doing.
How big a scale of investment would be required for this, and how have you structured your finances accordingly?
Well, this is the next stage that we're going into. Right now, we're scaling our production. There's still a couple of more years before we could reach preclinical testing. And of course, we have to do clinical testing for this product, because it will be a pharmaceutical commodity product in the end. And it has to go all of the testing phases that a pharmaceutical product has to go through. But the idea is to have a structure of licensing the technology to the production, to the local production sites. And RedC Biotech will supply these production sites with the know-how, design of what a factory has to have, and also the raw materials, the cell lines that are required, and of course the recipes for the growth media and production procedures that are required in order to produce the red blood cell transfusions.
But in terms of finance, what are the challenges that you're looking for? Because you come, sir, from a science background, and you would definitely want a team which is financially sound to take your product to the market and scale it up.
Yeah, so we will have to build our investments and our need for money gradually, and it will be and it's according to the milestones that we have to achieve. So at this point, we're looking for investments that will help us develop the product and bring us towards preclinical testing. So that's one sum of money that has to be brought. The when moving from the scale of preclinical testing to clinical testing, you have to scale up and, of course, make sure that also your costs are there. And the third chunk of the investment is going into the clinical trials, which is also very large in its own. And so these steps are built into milestones. So also the financing is built gradually into these. And of course, in the background, and maybe not in the background, but more in parallel, we have to start thinking about production sites. And because establishment of production sites is not something that happens in a year, and sometimes not even in 2 years. You have to start designing them maybe 3 years in advance. And the cost of production sites is also a large investment. A production site can cost $50 million and going up, US dollars, of course.
Okay. So we are talking about big funding here. So how are you funding this project? Have you considered raising institutional funds?
Yeah, so until this point, we raised our first investment was from friends and family. We also did a campaign, a very effective campaign with a crowd investment platform here in Israel called PeopleBees, and we also were very lucky to win a contest, a competition in Dubai, which gave us another $500,000. It was a joint competition between the Aviram Foundation and Forbes. It was a Middle East based competition for doing well for humanity. And so this is bringing us to the point where we are now. And we're seeking financing for the next phase. We have to grow our team. We have to rent additional lab space, the cost of materials as we're scaling, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're taking the process from a sub-liter volume to above liter volume. And the cost of materials, the cost of the process is still very high. So that's where we are now.
So when you talk about a patented technology, you definitely secured a patent for your technology. But how do you intend to scale this technology globally? Because there are going to be a lot of legal and regulatory issues when you're considering different geographies.
Yeah, so first of all, RedC, as you said, secured the technology. We licensed the patents for the production procedure. And of course, as we move forward and develop more and more technologies, we'll have many, many more patents that will be associated with the company. And we'll be able to license the technology and the know-how for production to groups, industrial groups, or medical pharmaceutical companies in the different regions. every one of these companies or groups that will take the license will have to deal with the regulatory requirements and the bureaucracy in their countries in order to establish this. But though there are a lot of hurdles, as you said, and a lot of challenges there, I can assure every company or group that will do this in their country that they will be doing good to their people and doing good to their patients around the world, and it will be very profitable. It will be both, and I think that's the best win-win that we could expect.
Absolutely, absolutely. I also wanted to know that in this space, in creating universal red blood cells for transfusion purposes, so when you see that Red C is going to get launched at a scale that you want them to, do you have a timeline in picture?
Yeah, so it will take us about 2 to 3 more years before we could go into the preclinical testing. From there on, we have about a year of preclinical testing and building our capabilities to go into clinical testing. Clinical testing will be different than for our product than for perhaps other pharmaceuticals, but still it will take its time. So if I take the full timeline, it will take about 5 years before we could register a product at the regulatory groups and be ready for commercialization.
So, what is the piece of advice, or what are the three things that come to your mind to give an advice to a youngster who's maybe potentially thinking of scaling up and growing their own business?
It's super important to make sure that you'll be doing good for people and making a good change and taking into consideration human health on one side and sustainability. I think all of those are extremely important when we're thinking about startup. And on the personal level, a person has to be extremely patient and persistent and know that it's a long way, especially when you're developing a product in the life sciences and in the pharmaceutical or medical area. It takes years and it takes a lot of energy um, to, to explain, and it takes time to reach a product that fits all of the requirements, and patience is perhaps the most important.
Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you very much.
with the world this product. We hope that you and your team are absolutely successful